Well, hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to our work session for this evening, Monday, March 10th. Uh, Travis, are you all ready to go? Thank you. All right, so we'll call the meeting to order and we'll begin with the roll call.
Mayor Garitano,
Here,
Councilmember Brost, Councilmember Edens,
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Marshall,
Present.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Here.
Councilmember Hopper, Councilmember Solani,
Here.
Councilmember Preston,
Here.
Councilmember Mabry,
Here.
Councilmember Nyan,
Here.
Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember Cran, Councilmember Albert.
thank you for that. I see we have Councilmember Edens join us virtually there by Zoom. And welcome again to everyone here in the room and everyone that's online. So we'll move forward to our mayor's comments and announcements section. And we have a gentleman from White Buffalo who's going to speak tonight, Ryan Rotz, who is a project manager with White Buffalo. So we're going to bring him on to share an update.
And then thank you, Mayor. This also corresponds with the final report for information tonight under the deer management update that was submitted. So we'll get Ryan Rhodes in here, but wanted to provide him with the opportunity to give a general overview of the operations in the field and then also provide the council an opportunity to ask any questions. But we could turn it over to Mr. Rhodes with the mayor's permission. All right. Whenever you're ready, Ryan.
Yeah, just wanted to let everybody know that this was a successful program this year. Diligently worked towards our goal and exceeded that by a small amount. As we alluded to in the report, we harvested 361 deer over the work period. No significant challenges this year as far as field operations go. Some minor inconveniences, but really nothing that was too detrimental to the program. Generally, the program went very well from my perspective. We used 4 biologists in the field that were actively removing deer just about every night on the program. So in the initial budget, we had anticipated using 3 biologists, but just based on the layout of the properties that we were working on this year and the inclusion of Northeast 1, we brought in an additional biologist to help out, and that seemed to work well. We had enough sites to cycle through easily and get good coverage. So generally, that was a good addition to the program. Not always able to utilize that many marksmen in the field. Just you don't have enough sites to be able to utilize that many staff members. So I was glad to be able to accommodate that on the program. And from my perspective, things went really well this year. Donated several deer to the zoo. That helped defray some of the cost of the program, the processing specifically. So that was a great addition, and they're very appreciative of the meat for the Red Wolf Recovery Program. So the only challenges that we always have on these types of programs, specifically one is access. Without access, we can't remove deer. So that's always a challenge on every program that we work on. Almost never do you get 100% access unless you're working in a larger regional park or park system, such as National Park Service. So from that perspective, everything went well. And then the only other challenge we had was residents illegally feeding deer. I had mentioned in the report that that's detrimental to the overall success of the program. When you're at high densities, it doesn't matter so much because there's enough available targets out there to be able to remove efficiently. But as that's reduced, it becomes more imperative that there's not additional food sources out there for the deer. So really, that's the update on my end. Everything else seems to be in the report. If there's specific questions members have, I'd be glad to answer those to the best of my ability.
All right, thank you, Ryan. I will now ask the council if they have any questions. I do see Councilmember Edens has something for you.
Hi, yes. Thank you for the written report and then just also the verbal report as well. I represent Ward 2, which is the area that was specifically listed in the report as difficulty for obtaining access into the Wild Horse subdivision area in the Highlands. The last Public Works meeting that I was able to attend, that is something that we talked about, but I didn't have a chance to speak with you about it. My advice that I've kind of gave back to our city administrator was to continue to try. I know it seems like an exercise in futility, but since I've been on council, the board has turned over more than once. The residents have a pretty good rate of turnover as well when we look at new resident listings in that area. And in addition, this is still, a very new program. And so every year that we establish a perfect safety record, I think gives ease to people that are questioning safety concerns or liability. So the answer that you get now, you might not get 2 years from now. So I just really want to encourage you to kind of continue to go back into that area and provide those individuals with opportunities to talk to other areas where it successfully occurred.
Yeah, and generally we see that. We saw that in Northeast 1 as well. When we finished completion of the project successful the previous year, we had an overwhelming outreach of support in a lot of the neighborhoods. So my expectation is that we'll see that again, right? Like you said, it's something new and people perceive it as scary. And then when residents whose property we work on talk to their neighbors, that flow of information seems to set people's mind at ease. And when they realize that, we ended up removing whatever it is, depending on the specific property, 20 deer next door, and they didn't even know we were operating there, that allows them to sleep a little better at night. And that would be my expectation, is that some of that access will open up as we get further along in the project. From my standpoint, it's just you do the best you can, and then once you get to that point, then we leverage the residents that we have access on their property, because even though Wildwood feels like a big community, it's really pretty tight knit. It's amazing how many people know other people whose property that we work on, and they didn't even know we were working there. Yeah, it feels like a big community, but then it's really tight knit, and a lot of the residents know each other.
Yes, I would agree with that. And my next question is perhaps better directed at staff, but the residents specifically that you know of that are feeding the deer, do we know if we've cited them? Because we do, this is why we passed the ordinance. I mean, I was there and voted for it, so that we have something enforceable. Are we actually enforcing the ordinance, I guess, is my question.
The city administrator will answer that question.
Thank you, Mayor. In this case, there has not been a citation issued, but there have been warning letters sent out. We have a new draft template that's been produced, and at this time, there has been some difficulty proving the actual feeding of the deer, but that does not forbade the city from being able to issue the warning notice. So that's one thing that we could revisit at a future committee meeting of the Administration and Public Works Committee, of how to kind of define what feeding the deer is, because right now, if there's corn in the field, there's been a lot of instances where the individual might just say, hey, it's for the rabbits that are coming through. It's for other animal and wildlife, not just the deer itself. But usually when we have code enforcement visit with the resident that might be illegally feeding the deer, allegedly, that typically stings them into compliance in that way. And then on top of that, that letter, the follow-up, it's just, there has been some issues with, at least from the court side, being able to take it full through to prosecution.
Okay. Yeah, I would just say continue to do that. Can we include in the letter of citation information about public health? Anything that helps individuals understand, what we're concerned about, that's not just overpopulation, chronic wasting disease, alpha-gal syndrome, Lyme disease, number of deer strikes, because I think that makes a better compelling argument. Because if we can't go all the way to enforcement, then we have to work on the education component a little bit more.
Certainly.
That's it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilmember Dodwell.
So what are our next steps coming up next year? Are we going to go back to what we did 2 years ago? Are we going to redo this area, or do we have a new area that we're going to start to work on?
With your permission. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Mayor. In this case, thank you for that question, Councilmember Dodwell. In this case, what we're planning on doing now is we're doing additional surveys of both the NE1 region that had some touch-up work that was done this year. We're going back to we're going to NE2 to do another survey of that as well to show the impact that we had this year. And then we're also going to get over to Southeast 1, and that's the most that we're in Southeast 1 right now. It's right below 100. And in this case, we will look at these results, and if we need to take a revisit, there's most likely going to be some pockets from that HOA where we needed access to the common grounds. But we have a solution in a sense that we could go back to those residents. We already have communicated with them via direct mailers. We can send out a direct mailer to them, especially to the residents that have already shown interest in those subdivisions, to say, hey, there's still pockets of deer that you might be seeing, which the data shows that they probably are. That unfortunately we weren't able to get the access needed in your area. Please reach out to your HOA to express your interest in the program. And at that point, maybe turn up the dial a little bit. And before we recommit to going, we'll have to see what the data suggests, but before we recommit to going back to the NE2 area, we could maybe get buy-in from those HOAs and get access to the common ground before we would proceed with another contract with White Buffalo for that area. But right now, I mean, I would let Mr. Rhodes speak a little bit more towards the actual professional side of it and his recommendation. But I do think right now it's going to be a little bit of a mix of touch up in the NE2 region based off the data received, and then also touching back on Southeast 1.
If I might say something, Mayor, I just wanted to pass along that I've already got residents in the NE1 area that are telling me there's more deer. And I'm like, yes, there will be more deer because they have babies every year. But it's not to the point that it was. So as we get through this cycle a little bit further, it might behoove us to broadcast in our newsletter or broadcast in our Gazette what the long-term plan is, and that we'll have to go back to to each of these areas 5 years from now or something like that. I'll let Mr. Rhodes explain the best method for that, but they will multiply.
Mr. Rhodes, would you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think just generally our hope is that the hunting activity that takes place in each of these zones will at least mitigate reproductive activity. So ideally, it would be net neutral, right? We drive down the population, and hunting activity that already takes place there would mitigate the reproductive activity, and we wouldn't see any population growth. As we move forward, it'll be important to have the surveys done so that we know exactly what's happening. Anecdotally, we can also use feedback from residents, such as you suggested earlier, and deer vehicle collision strikes, right? Those are the metrics that communities typically use to see where they're at. And, it's kind of up to the residents then to define what's acceptable, right? It's kind of the difference between the natural carrying capacity and the social carrying capacity. So we did quite a bit of additional work in Northeast 1 this year in 2 pockets. One was the Point Clayton subdivision, and then the other one was kind of the Panorama Shepherd Loop. And those areas we knew last year had a significant number of deer left when we completed our work. So based on resident feedback, we went to those areas. So if there's other pockets where the numbers are unacceptable, then it's just a matter of recording that and understanding what's happening in those pockets and seeing if the residents' observations align with other data that we have, and then how strong is the need to revisit those areas. And that data, as we get more data coming in from the surveys, we'll know better what that trend line looks like, how many deer the hunters are harvesting, how many deer vehicle collision strikes there are, and whether that's acceptable or not to the community. And then you kind of tailor your management strategy from there.
All right, Councilmember Mabry. Could you just check your microphone? Thank you.
The question's not for White Buffalo. the fact that there's been no injuries, that's the first thing I look for in the report. And the next is having achieved all goals. That's a big second. Question I'd like to ask Mr. Lee is, I know that the city administrator's report is not confidential and it's not to be withheld from the public. But can you frame something that the city council members can use framed in a way that's specifically tailored for issuing to fellow residents who ask, to the HOAs representatives that they may disperse and distribute? This wouldn't be put in council member speak. It would be put in simple resident, simple neighbor, not simple-minded, I'm sorry, but just straightforward resident and HOA and other vested public parties out there. And that they don't have to go and peck around, hunt around for something that's on a website, because they don't do that.
Yes, certainly, Mr. Mabry. We can actually get that over to you this week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't see any other hands up regarding the White Buffalo topic, so therefore I want to express our appreciation to Ryan and your team for the work that you're doing, and thank you for joining us this evening to speak with the council.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. All right, now we shall ask Ms. Danielle Spradley, who is the Community Outreach Liaison with the Office of the County Executive here in St. Louis County, to come up and welcome to our meeting. Just a moment. I think he's going to make sure it's on. Yep.
All right. Oh, that's loud. Hi, my name is Danielle Spradley, and I am a new community outreach liaison for St. Louis County. I joined the team in November. And what that involves is me going out into community and listening to you and hearing what your issues are. And also bringing back information to you all so you can let your constituents know what's going on in the county. So I'm going to give you a couple things that are going on. And then if you have questions for me, if I don't have the answer, I'll make sure to get it back to you. I brought my card so everybody can get a hold of me if you have anything concerning the county in your wards. So right now the county is hard at work on a multitude of projects that benefit our residents, and we're working on our 2050 plan because we want to ensure that in our strategic planning process, it's built on public engagement with people like you who serve the community and our constituents. To provide a long-term vision for the county and guide the development for sustainable and fiscally responsible community. So we are going to have a couple more opportunities for community engagement coming up in April concerning the 2050 plan. And I have packets for you that have the dates of those events. They are family friendly. So if people have children and are worried about childcare, there will be people there to help with childcare. Also recently, the county executive signed a multi-jurisdictional agreement with St. Charles, Franklin, and Jefferson counties for a new regional training center for our police officers. And this is a transformational project that will help support law enforcement across our region and comes after months of discussions between the leadership of each county. And St. Louis County received the funding through a state appropriation. So we're going to have a lot more police officers trained all together. So there's continuity in our training and more opportunities. Also, one thing, St. Louis County just got named one of America's best mid-size employers with Forbes magazine, and we are hiring. I think all of you saw what happened this winter. We need plow drivers, we need accountants, we need clerks, we need caseworkers. There are a lot of opportunities, whether it's in public works, parks, for people to get jobs in the county, and it's a good job. Also, I want to talk to you, and one of the things that I came in and was brought into the county to do is try to find resources for our community, whether that's looking for federal grants, state grants to fix problems you hear. And one of the things I want to hear from you all, for instance, if I'm up in North County, we hear a lot about illegal dumping. I don't know if that's a problem in Wildwood. I don't know if you're having an issue with that. Also, any way the county can help you and be a closer voice. One thing I want to make sure that everybody has department directors or department numbers. When people call and they don't know who to call in the county, this has information on who they should call, who takes care of what issue. And if you have any further questions, I can always direct you to the right person to get a problem solved. On that, with our directors, we have an open house coming up on March 25th at the Greensfelder Rec Complex. And that's where the community can come out, meet all the different departments from the county, learn what they do, learn what services they have, and speak with department directors directly. Concerning our directors, I also want to talk about a April 8th ballot initiative called Proposition B that has just been passed by the county council. And what this grant, Prop B, would grant is the county council unchecked power to fire department heads without cause. This means a department director could be removed for simply making a decision that some council members disagree with. And the issue with it is it also causes chaos in decision-making. For instance, if 4 council members think a department director should do this, and 3 council members believe a department director thinks the department director should do this, and then the county executive is saying, do this, who do they listen to? Who is your boss? Where is the chain of command? And the St. Louis County Circuit Court has already condemned this at language as being misleading, insufficient, inaccurate, argumentative, prejudicial, and unfair, and it's remaining on the ballot as a cost to you at $520,000 of the RAM settlement money. And the thing is, part of this also, and there's legal questions, seems to give them the power to fire the police chief. That's why the police board has voted against the measure. AFL-CIO has voted against the measure. And today the council is passing a resolution to say that they won't fire the police chief. But I think you all know as laws makers, resolutions aren't legally binding, which means it would have to go back to the ballot to fix this language that wasn't written correctly. And that'll cost you another $520,000 to fix this poorly written language. And with that, I'll take any questions.
All right. Well, thank you for coming tonight. I do have a couple of comments. And welcome to our city here in Wildwood. Just in case you weren't aware, we are the largest municipality in all of the county, even larger than the city of St. Louis. And there are about 88 municipalities.
Yeah.
So if you took area wise, you could fit 65 of them in Wildwood. That's how big we are. Smaller ones, obviously, starting from that bottom up. But that just shows you how massive we are. So a couple of things. I do appreciate the partnership that we have with St. Louis County when it comes to the services of our county police. So it's great that we've had this long running partnership over the years. Our residents rely on the services of the St. Louis County Police. A couple other things too. We're very fortunate in the most recent November election through the Board of Elections of the county. We were the, I think, second busiest absentee voting location in all of the county.
Wow.
So our residents are very engaged when it comes to voting.
Okay.
And then I'll leave you one more interesting stat, which I read about from the county, that in Wildwood, we have the highest life expectancy.
I believe that.
I believe it's about 94 years of age in the 63040 area zip code. So, that's obviously another positive here. But just a couple of things when it comes to the county, what we hear a lot is regarding the roads, the county roads. Old State Road is a topic that comes up a lot. Clayton Road, just making sure that these stay on the top of the list for priority when it comes to maintaining these roads. And certainly a big topic of discussion that our residents are interested in, and many have applied, is that senior property tax freeze.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that folks have been asking questions how that process is moving along, but those are just some of the things I think are top of mind to our folks. And I'm going to open it up to see if we have any council members that would like to share. So Councilmember Marshall.
I guess as the county council taking a position on removing sales tax on food, It's a big issue for the state now and be a really big issue for the county and for cities like Wildwood that depend on sales tax revenue as a source of revenue.
I am not sure what the council has done on that. I can get that information back to you.
Previously,
Can I-
you had a really good lobbyist that worked on those kind of issues. And that's very detrimental to local cities.
St. Louis County did
And-
have someone at the Capitol when their hearing took place about a week ago opposing that.
They are opposed.
That tax, the elimination of the grocery tax. The county did have someone there. Yeah.
Well, how would they do that if it's the same time as the income tax?
That's what they asked the people that made the motion to move it forward.
Oh, okay. So, okay. All right. So, okay. I will bring that to the county executive. All right. Anything else?
Anyone else? Councilmember Dodwell.
Are you all planning on doing any updates to your website to make it more user-friendly?
I brought this to the team this last week, actually.
I get several complaints on an ongoing basis of A, where do I find the information? B, when I go to where they say I go, the page doesn't display correctly. Something as simple as changing the aspect ratio of your page for a smaller screen or a larger screen automatically, just simple web kinds of things. So if you want to have that be a resource for the community to understand how to get information and take some of the load off the staff in general, I would suggest that you put some kind of initiative together to really work on the county website and not just the county executive's website, but all of the components that lie within it.
It's the same folks.
Yeah.
And I did actually have this discussion with them last week because I heard this at the Spanish Lake Community Association. So I will bring that up again.
Councilmember Farmer.
Yeah, I think it would be also probably good to have a conversation with the folks in the road department. We've got an interesting mix of state and county and city roads, and they all kind of form a nice nest. And in a lot of places where those roads either meet or cross over or whatever you want to say, the kind of middle parts get forgotten. And we've got Clayton Road that runs through a big part of our city that's pretty often in rough shape, and Old State and a bunch of other ones. So as Mayor Garitano said, we are a big city in terms of area. We're also a pretty vocal city in terms of voters. So I might suggest throwing some money at the roads around here. That would be good.
Absolutely. And I do have some information on current infrastructure projects, some that have been completed and the upcoming as well that are in this district. But if you want to email me, I'll give you my card and let me know exactly where those are. I can bring.
Sure.
All right. Anyone else? Well, I don't see anyone else, so I want to thank you for visiting us. Please come back again. And we appreciate your update as well as taking our feedback as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Can I pass these around or should I wait till after?
You can hand it to Colleen there and she can pass that around to everyone. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move forward then to the for information section of the agenda. I'll pause right now to see if anyone has a question or any comments specific to any of the for information items. Seeing none, we can come back to that. So we'll proceed into for action. We have two items under for action. The first item is from the Planning and Parks Committee. So Director Vujicic, thank you for coming up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, as was mentioned, the Planning and Parks Committee has been developing Phase 2 of Village Green, which would be an all-inclusive playground that would rival any and other communities across the region. This process started in fall of 2023, And from that point forward, we've been working with a consultant, Unlimited Play. Unlimited Play has developed many of these types of playgrounds across the region, as well as across the United States. Over the course of those meetings held by the Planning and Parks Committee, different variations of the plan were presented by the consultant team, Unlimited Play. One big decision occurred at the closure of 2024 with the decision to go forward with a premier design, meaning one that would offer a full range of activities to all abilities based upon age, 2 to 5 and then 5 and older. Also, there were multiple discussions about location, access, and restrooms. Ultimately, the Planning and Parks Committee endorsed the design that's part of the packet of information on this item and being displayed on your monitors and behind the dais tonight. There are 3 major components to this particular playground. I've mentioned 2 already, and it's the playground structures themselves. They are different sizes and intended for different age groups. And then the third, I kind of alluded to as well, the restroom. I note in the letter from the committee that those 3 components comprise 1.2 million of the overall cost of the project. The good news is that there has been strong endorsement, not only from the Planning and Parks Committee of this facility, but also the entirety of City Council. That endorsement went as far as supporting the Department of Planning and Parks, filing a grant application with the Municipal Park Grant Commission of St. Louis County. Melanie Ripto, our Assistant Director, worked on that very hard, and we were successful. So the commission is providing $575,000, the maximum amount of grant available for each round, to the City of Wildwood for this facility. You do the quick math, that lowers the cost, obviously, to the City of Wildwood from that estimated $2.3 million to well under $1.75 million. The budget is still a little high, and there are some discussions that will occur as we move from this conceptual process into design and engineering, and those will be initiated at the Planning and Parks Committee and then brought to City Council for final action. Tonight, however, the Planning and Parks Committee is respectfully requesting endorsement of the concept design as presented and endorsed by its members. The City Council would endorse this particular design and allow the departments of Planning, Parks, Public Works to begin working on the selection of an engineering firm to create the necessary plans for bidding purposes along with specifications, and then ultimately bring that information to the Planning and Parks Committee, City Council, so as we can begin construction of the project sometime this year and be completed by June of 2026. If there are any questions regarding the letter, pardon me, and the recommendation, Mr. Galani, who is the chair of the committee or the department, be glad to answer them at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me ask if anyone would like to make a motion or you have any questions, preferably like to get a motion on the floor before we open up for discussion. Councilmember Edens, I see your hand up. Is that for a motion?
I had a question, but I would be happy to make the motion unless somebody else really wants to, but I still have a question after.
Yeah, we don't have a motion on the floor, but it'd be great if you do, and that way
Yes,
we can get a second and have discussion. Go ahead.
Okay, you need a second first, or?
Yeah, so your motion is that regarding the department's recommendation?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so do we have a second? Councilmember Dodwell with the second. So we have a motion on the floor, so we'll open up for discussion. Go ahead, Councilmember Edens.
Yeah, my only question is, I'm not on Planning and Parks, so I'm just going off of the memo and not the discussion. So that's where the confusion lies. So I think the design looks really neat. This is something that we can really be proud of. The memo under the information on the update to the Village Green, one of the things it mentions is the water play component, but I unless I missed it, I just didn't see it in this design. I'm actually okay with that. I would prefer that it didn't, but is that in there and I just missed it, or is the water play thing on hold?
There are, as part of the estimate budget, accommodations made for stormwater.
Stormwater. Okay. I thought there was supposed to be like originally, maybe it got cut, a play zone, water area, and to take your time. I'm home from sickness as well, so you don't have to rush back to the podium. But my concern was originally when the city or the committee talked about water play components is that municipalities that have done that or have large fountain features, we go through periods of drought where it's not really sustainable, then they have to be turned off, or there's I know issues with other municipalities or centers that have little water jets that come up from a bottom surface, that those areas that become clogged either with natural debris or sometimes pins or something like that are shoved down their sticks, and it becomes a maintenance issue. So it sounds like that there's a water play feature associated with this design that's different than stormwater, or there isn't.
Ms. Edens, the committee did endorse some type of water feature.
Okay.
It is not part of this particular playground improvement. It's intended to be part of a future phase.
Okay, well then I would like
But,
to, that's, you don't have to say anything else, save your voice. To answer my question, I'd like to keep my motion, then I can get behind this 100%. And I don't have to worry about my concerns. So thank you for clarifying, and save your voice.
My apologies to all.
No worries at all, Joe. Anyone else that wishes to either comment on the motion that we have here or have a question? We'll see none, then we have that motion on the floor. We'll do this by voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone oppose or abstain? All right, the motion passes. We'll move on to the next item under the Department of Planning and Parks, the preservation efforts in association with the Mary Cliff residents at the Marianas Retreat Center.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, in April of 2024, the province that owns the Marianas Retreat Facility, and specifically the Mary Cliff residents, requested a demolition permit to remove this historic asset. Certainly from the Historic Preservation Commission's perspective, this was probably the worst case scenario of anywhere in all of Wildwood. Mary Cliff residence has been recognized for many, many years as just an asset that is irreplaceable, and every effort should be made to preserve it. The Historic Preservation Commission, is part of any demolition permit, does visit the site. We met with the demolition contractor and representatives of the province, and we're able to convince them to give us time to see if we could find options or solutions. Over the course of approximately 1 year, the department and others, our city administrator, as well as individuals outside city government, have worked on these options. Ultimately, at the end of last year, the province came back and basically said, you have really only two options. Either purchase the entirety of the property, 115 acres, or we'll give you Mary Cliff residence if you move it elsewhere. Neither of those were practical, and when presented to the Planning and Parks Committee, they basically said, we'll give you additional time to see if there is proverbial Hail Mary pass out there that'll win the game. If not, the department will bring forward at the March meeting of City Council the results of that additional time. And so tonight, the department is presenting to you no solution, no workable option. There are still efforts out in the private sector to try to save the Mary Cliff residents, as well as the entirety of the property, from potential development. A lot has happened over this last weekend once information was released about the department coming forward to City Council. However, under our Historic Preservation and Restoration Code, we have limited options. So tonight, despite all the efforts of many, many people, including those of you on City Council, the mayor, and others, The department is respectfully requesting authorization to prepare a resolution that would direct the Department of Planning to issue the demolition permit. If there are any questions, the department would be glad to answer them at this time.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone that either wishes to make a motion or have questions? Councilmember Mabry.
Staff's recommendation.
Okay, so Councilmember Mabry is making a motion for approval of the staff's recommendation. Is there a second? Councilmember Jaxi. We have the motion on the floor. Councilmember Mabry, do you wish to speak to that or? Okay. All right, anyone have any questions or comments? Okay,
So if there is any comments that the city council and the mayor receives relative to the action tonight, there is a 30-day period to prepare the resolution. So the earliest the department would be in position to issue the demolition permit would be sometime in mid-April. So there is a little bit more time for that private community to try their best. Thank you.
okay, thank you. All right, well, then with that motion on the floor and seeing no hands up, Councilmember Rambo.
Yeah, I just want to say that we worked our tails off to try to figure out a solution and ran every rabbit and just couldn't get there. I'm going to vote no on this just because I can't in good conscience vote to demolish such a beautiful it's a beautiful example or a beautiful asset to the community. It's one of the best historic buildings that we have. And so my vote will reflect that and not any disapproval of the department's recommendation. Thanks.
All right, thank Councilmember Mabry.
Allowing questions prior to vote. Same exact perspective as the other council member. And I'm maybe the newest one to get in the weeds on this, but I'm also quite rankled at the owner's actions of unauthorized demolition, which nearly guarantees their preferred outcome. It's because of that, though, that I'm not going to let that keep from what I think is the most prudent decision on city staff's part. So a militant yes under protest.
Understood. Thank you. I don't see any more hands up, so we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose?
Yeah.
We have one oppose. Anyone abstain? Motion passes. We'll move on to miscellaneous. We have a receive and file item.
Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, the Planning and Zoning Commission was asked to consider a waiver to the centralized wastewater treatment plant requirement of the city's subdivision development regulations for a 31-acre parcel of ground that is located at the northwest corner of Pond Road and Route 100. The Planning and Zoning Commission endorsed the waiver for a number of reasons. Principally, the density of the project is less than what's allowed under the NU non-urban resident district, that there are conditions associated with their waiver that would require tertiary treatment of wastewater from each of the 8 home sites, as well as the developer of the property establishing as part of the homeowners association a reserve to ensure that the wastewater treatment systems on each of the lots are maintained on a regular basis and at operating efficiency. So tonight, the department is presenting the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission, and again, respectfully requesting authorization to prepare a resolution for the next meeting in April, allowing the waiver to proceed forward and for the developer and the departments of Planning and Public Works to move on to the preliminary plat. If there are any questions regarding the development or the waiver, the department would be glad to answer them at this time.
Do you have any questions? Councilmember Marshall.
Yes, Mr. Vunich, and I don't want you to have to do a whole lot of explaining. Would this be a totally different direction then for the city? Because in the past, that 5 to 7 homes on an area required having a treatment system. Will we be stepping away from that now, or are there other things that we would have to change? Or how about all of those that have done it in the past and are not keeping up with it?
Well, generally speaking, both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Department of Planning have endorsed waivers when they're in the vicinity of 7 lots or less. 7 lots or less can be granted by the Department of Planning. In this case, it's one more. And so from the perspective of the department, that additional lot is adding a number of requirements no other development of this size would have. And so from its perspective, they're putting suspenders on a pair of britches that already has a belt. So I think it's actually a positive, and we've done this elsewhere. Primarily when the densities are so much less than what the underlying zoning district designation would allow, we often, that being the commission and the department, feel that the lower density, the larger lots are better for the environment.
Any other questions? All right, no action then from the council regarding this, so.
Mr. Mayor, the department would respectfully request authorization to prepare a resolution for the city endorsing the waiver.
Okay, do you need a motion for that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Councilmember Ottenberg is going to make a motion. Do we have a second for that motion made by Councilmember Farmer? Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain?
I abstain.
We have one abstention. Okay, so with
Again, my
that,
apologies for my call.
oh, no problem. All right, so with that then, work session agenda, we will adjourn at this point unless there's anything under miscellaneous that anyone wishes to bring up. Okay, can I get a motion for adjournment? Councilmember Edens?
I just
Did you have
wanted to thank the Parks and Recreation team. I participated again in the, Cabin Fever hiking challenge, and it was a lot of fun. I did miss a turn and restart the loop, so I did more than the required amount. But thanks for putting on the program.
Okay, so we're going to adjourn the work session at this time. If we can get a motion for that, made by Councilmember Farmer, a second, made by Councilmember Ottenberg. All those in favor, please say aye.
Bye.
Opposed, abstain, or motion to adjourn passes. We will start our regular city council meeting at 6. All right, thank you, everyone, for joining us. For those that are here in the room and those that are watching through either Zoom or YouTube, thank you for joining us for our March 10th City Council meeting. So I'll call the meeting to order and we'll start with the roll call.
Mayor Garitano,
Present.
Councilmember Gross, Councilmember Edens,
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Marshall,
Present.
Councilmember Jackson,
Here.
Councilmember Hopper, Councilmember Galani,
Here.
Councilmember Parker,
Here.
Councilmember Mavry,
Here.
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 Okay, well, thank you for joining. I know we have council member two that is not able to make it tonight due to illness, and Councilmember Albers had a family emergency and said he'd try to make it as soon as possible. So thanks again for everyone being here. So we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you're able to stand and join me, greatly appreciate that. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move to the approval of the minutes, which will be part of the consent agenda. So now we're going to get into public participation. And so just for clarity, because we do have a public hearing tonight, and you're able to speak at public participation regardless of the topic. But if you're specifically going to speak regarding the public hearing item PZ 5-24 Etherton Heights, we'll be calling that up after the mayor's announcements and appointments. So we'll check as we call names just to make sure we've got you for the right portion of the participation process. But public participation, we will have 5 minutes to speak, and we'll give you a warning when we get close to that time. We just ask you to be respectful in your comments. And so, Colleen, could you please go ahead and start with our first comment? And then if you do have a speaker card already filled out, you can turn it into Colleen and she will call your name up. And if you haven't filled one out yet, please do make sure you do fill one out if you wish to speak. So Colleen, go ahead.
John Gunther wants to speak on Mary.
Thank you. My name is John Gunther. I live at 18041 Melrose Road, Ward 1. Good evening. I'm here tonight to give you an update regarding the preservation of Mary Cliff at the Marinas Retreat Center, 4000 State Route 109. I am a resident of this area since 1966, a member of the founders of the City of Wildwood, 1995, first Planning and Zoning Commission, 1995 to 99, founding member of the Architectural Review Board, 97, serving as chair, vice chair, secretary, 1997 to 2014. I'm an architect and a fellow of the American Institute of Architects for contribution to design, and I also serve as president of the Society of Architectural Historians St. Louis chapter. I would also note, as we're here talking about the Marinists, that I'm a graduate of Chaminade High School, 1972, having been educated by the Marinists from 1966 to 72 from 6th grade on. I owe my love of history to Brother William Sheehy and my lifelong career to Mr. Walter Resch, my technical drafting instructor, who asked me, "Have you ever thought about being an architect?" Those 8 words changed my life forever. I spoke on April 25th, 2024, to the Historic Preservation Commission to plead for the preservation of Mary Cliff and its adaptive reuse. I spoke about how I and fellow Chaminade graduates have sought out possible funding sources to preserve Mary Cliff. Recently, we learned that the Marinas province is considering the sale of the entire property of approximately 115 acres. Subsequently, we identified a potential buyer who has expressed interest. Now we need to find out more from the attorneys representing the Marinas province about the details, including the asking price for the Marinas Retreat Center Accordingly, we will move as quickly as possible. We also understand that if a buyer is not found, a request for demolition has been made. We want you to know the potential buyer and our continued hope to preserve Marycliff, one of the most beautiful historic buildings in Wildwood and well beyond, representing not only a physical asset, but also an historical one. It must be saved. We are grateful that the Historic Preservation Commission denied demolition of such a magnificent historic structure. This is a forever decision should demolition be granted. Why should this beautiful historic structure and precious resource be sent to a landfill? Marycliff must be restored for use by this and future generations. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker.
Sue Wise on Zizer Farms re-subdivision.
And I just apologize because I'm losing my voice. My name is Sue Wise. I'm here with Jerry Wise and also representing Steve and Kim Millman. And we respectfully request that you do 2 readings to the Zizer Farms re-subdivision plat. And then I think I turn it over to Joe. Not yet. Okay. So wrong cue on that one. So that's all I have to say because that's what I thought I was supposed to do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll just make note of that request
Okay,
for a
thank
second
you.
reading. Thank you. The next speaker.
Carrie Tebby speaking to J-turns, junk and abandoned vehicles and sidewalk replacements.
Hello, my name's Kerry Tebby. I live at Ward 4. I'm a founding member of Wildwood. I lived in Evergreen for some time and moved out west off Highway T. Speaking of J-turns, I researched a lot of this related to the J-turns. I think it's a proposition that MoDOT wants to instill, and I had made my way up to the state capitol. I talked to several representatives and a state senator and the governor's assistant related to these J-turns, and frankly, they're all negative. They have all negative feelings about the J-turns. They only decrease crashes by 20%, I think it said, related to left turns or moving out of Highway T and or Pond Road onto 100. I submit to you that instead of J-turns, that smart intersection stoplights are much, much safer, less expensive. And I called Central County Fire Alarm yesterday, and I asked them, I said, how many crashes have we had on Highway T and 100? They went back to 2023. There was 4 crashes on Highway T and 100. No transports of patients to the hospital. And there was 1 crash at Highway 100 and Pond Road. So I'm asking you to spend less money on this proposition and go with the smart intersection stoplights. We have decaying tree. A tree is a culinary pear or a Bradford pear, and it's rotting in the middle of our cul-de-sac. The ordinance says if you have a decaying tree or a dead tree, it must be cut down. It's an ordinance, but apparently Wildwood is given the HOA deference to not take it down. And it should be taken down for safety reasons. If it does fall on a person and or a vehicle, I don't want anybody to get injured. So I'm requesting that if we have an ordinance, let's abide by the ordinance, and the city should abide by it as well. Also sidewalks. I listened to the March 4th meeting. It was the administration, public safety meeting or public works meeting. And the question was posed about a citizen concerned about the way the new sidewalks were put down, that the surface of the new sidewalks were done in a different finish than the original. And Mr. Brown had indicated that sidewalks that are 20 years or older, you can't see what type of sidewalk surface it is. I beg to differ. Generally, most of the sidewalks in subdivisions are mag swirl sidewalks, which provides a lot more traction than a broom finish. And I confronted one of the contractors a couple years ago because they were putting a broom finish on a sidewalk that had the mag swirl finish. And they told me that they didn't know how to do a mag swirl finish. And I said, well, it doesn't look good. I said, you should at least try to match up the sidewalk.
1 minute.
Okay. Also, we have a business, a young man that's running a business out of his out of his house. He's got pool chlorine storage in the garage, and he's got 2 derelict vehicles that are in the driveway that are unlicensed. And I brought that up as well, never got a response. Also, when we fill out the cards, and when I get a deny, I'd like to have somebody's name who's denying my request, and at least give me a time to rebut any denial, and that'll be it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker.
Tim Comer, latitude 38.
Are you speaking, do you want to speak to the public hearing or speak now? I mean, if it's a public, it sounds like you're here for the latitude. Oh, that would be actually public. There is no public hearing on latitude, so it's another project that's a public hearing.
Okay, first off, I just want to take a second to honor a lifelong resident that passed away. She was my neighbor ever since I've lived in Wildwood. Her name was Ann Meyer. She's 96 years old. She lived there her whole life. She built her home in 1950. It was, she lived there until last year, and then she had to go to a nursing home. So, to have a resident that's lived in Wildwood, I just thought we could take a second to honor her. So I'm really here to speak on, I opposed the TB development. I opposed it from the get-go. Goes all the way back to when Joe was a council member. We had many meetings with Main Street Crossing folks, Canberry folks. After he became mayor, we also had meetings with Cliff and Michael and Joe, and never have I ever heard of anyone wanting this project. Even when I was canvassing to be a council member myself, I spoke to over 500 people. I've spoke to over 438 this year, and I haven't found anyone so far that wants to have this project. It's just way too dense. Mr. Vunich has also said previously, just because you can doesn't mean you should. That's a pretty bold statement coming from Mr. Vunich. It's just way too dense. The parking will become a huge problem. Just to give you a prime example, I have a family of 5. I have 4 cars parked in my driveway. My driveway is extremely large. I could probably park 12 cars. Between 2 of Tony's current renters, they each have at least 6 cars in their driveway, not counting the one on the end. And I think he only has 1. But the main concern is when you get into looking at this development, which we really haven't had a whole lot of time to look closely at it. These streets are so narrow. There were nowhere near enough parking in these spots. And, this is something we complained to McBride when they wanted to develop, is some of these units will not have basements. So when you don't have basements, you tend to store all your stuff and junk in the garage. So therefore, you're parking your cars on the driveway, and you barely have 2 spots on the driveway. And it's just too dense. And I will absorb a lot of the erosion. I know a lot of you think that some of the pictures I sent you weren't of my property. I can tell you 100% it's my property. I just had a large section of my driveway replaced last year, and it's already formed a huge crack from the winter and the runoff we've had already this year. There are things to really consider because once again, as Mr. Vunich just says, once you do it, it's too late. And he's also said this is in a floodplain. So I don't know how they're going to possibly grade the property to push all that water away from my property. I haven't been able to see on the new construction of the main street that would possibly take over Crestview. Are there storm sewers there? Is there going to be a storm sewer that lines my property? I doubt it. And then I saw the last meeting, I saw those T streets that come to an end. Why would it need to be a T street? Because they're never going to develop my property. There's just, it will never happen. I'll be here forever, so you'll have to put up with me. But, you know, once the damage is done, the damage is done. So how are you going to fix my property? And it will be damaged. And there's one other thing that I really have pressed on many times is everybody says, oh, we're going to improve Etherton Road. How are you going to
1 minute.
How are you going to improve Etherton Road? There's no room on either side. It's just impossible. So when you're going along and you're talking about all this, I would like to cover all the topics, you know, and if you're going to do Main Street, you have to do it exactly matching to what's already there in Main Street crossing. It has to look the same all the way from the city hall all the way to the new reserve. So you guys have all heard me many times, and I just want you to think about it. If you were me, how you would feel, and if you would be opposed or you'd want to go through with it. So I think 55 is way too many. And if you do 55, there has to be an on-site manager, because who are you going to call? I mean, it'll just be a headache. It'd be a huge problem for the city. So that's all I have.
Thank you. All right, next speaker.
Mara Voracek Warren. She is a Rockwood School Board candidate.
Good evening, and thanks for letting me speak. I'm Mara Voracek Warren, and I'm running for Rockwood School Board, and I'm just here to introduce myself. My husband and I moved to Wildwood in Ward 6 in 2010, and I gave birth to twins the following year. They're now 8th graders at Rockwood Valley Middle School and will be at Lafayette next year. I have taught middle school and high school and college. I'm currently a dean at St. Charles Community College, where I've worked since we moved here in 2010. My husband has 13 years of military service. He now also is a college instructor in political science. I'm chemistry, so we're on opposite sides. I'm very passionate about public education. That's one of the reasons why I moved to the St. Louis region, is the strength of Rockwood School District. I'm very passionate about keeping Rockwood School District as strong as it is right now. And I just wanted to introduce myself to you all and to the Wildwood community. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. All right, do we have any other speakers?
Lisa Johnson, who wants to speak to Latitude 38.
Hello, my name is Lisa Johnson. I'm with Amundsen Davis, and I'm here on behalf of the owner tonight to speak on Latitude N38 and Bill 2967. I just want to say that the plans that were submitted last to you are completely compliant with the town center plan. They meet a lot of the requirements for that area. The density is right within what was projected and shown to be what was planned for that area. There are, the current plan was the last plan that was submitted was requested by the city to be given to the fire marshal for review, which he did, and it was amended so that it would be compliant and has been approved by the fire marshal. That does include, I know there was some concern about the T streets and the turnarounds at the end of 2 of the streets in the development. And 2 of those are removed, and that's been created so that there's a road between 2 of those. There's only 1 of those that's remaining so that the traffic will be smoother in that area. It also provides for better parking. It provides for parking in at lot 28 along the top of one of those where there is an indentation so that it provides a secondary lane. There's still the pavement that's allowable for the fire department. That was part of what was provided already in the plans prior to that last change. If you take a look at that, there are, from what I understand, there are a few items after we reviewed the agenda packet, and I believe that a few of the items that you'll see on there will be changed. The units per building was different than what had been previously shown on plans and discussed with the city. The pavement should be 40 feet rather than 45 feet that was shown on there. And one difference that may be important to the owner to the south is that there is now to be a fence along the entire south border. Originally, it was supposed to be a shorter fence that was for the purpose of hiding any headlights that would be coming through the subdivision, but that's now going to be a 6-foot fence, and it will be the entire length rather than the landscaping that would shield part of that. The plan also benefits the city. It isn't just compliant with the town center plan, but it benefits the city in a lot of ways. One of which is that it will give the city the ability to complete Main Street. And there's the donation of the road, Crestview Drive along the road. And that should be taken into consideration by the council when they have the opportunity to review the plan. The timing of that transfer is something that we are concerned about, and we would ask the city to consider that. In the bill that's provided, it states that the transfer is to take place at the time that the record plat is submitted. And that just doesn't make sense because they would be donating the property prior to any approval of the record plat, prior to anything like that. I mean, it should be any kind of closing that you have where you transfer property and you get a benefit from that, or there's any kind of transfer of interest, that would happen at the same time. Roads in a record plat aren't dedicated until that record plat's approved, and we think that the same should be true for that donation of Crestview Drive. The developer has over time met with the city on multiple occasions and has made every effort to comply with requests to revise the plan and meet the request of the city. And it is planned to be an attractive development that will meet all of the requirements of the city at multiple locations in the bill that's proposed. It requires that's a condition of this, is that they will meet the requirements of the city of Wildwood, and they intend to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers?
Susan Seibert was to speak about the water connections at the new Pizza Beer Restaurant.
Evening. My name is Susan Seibert, and I live at 16352 Cherry Orchard Drive, about 5 houses from Mr. Garitano. And I also was chair of the celebration committee for several years. And now my husband took over in my place when I turned out. The reason I'm here today is I was coming up Old Manchester late this morning, and I passed the new venue for pizza and beer. And I am thoroughly excited about that. I know a lot of residents are. So when I saw workers there today, I pulled my car in and got out. There was a fellow there, and I started to talk to him. And he said, "No, you want to talk to that man over there. He's the owner." So I went over, I introduced myself. Heck of a nice guy. His name is Mr. Tripp. And we talked for a few minutes. He offered me a tour, and he brought me inside. I mean, this venue is going to be able to seat about 100 people. It's going to have a bocce court outside, also room for kids to play, outdoor seating. It's something that Wildwood really needs to help with and get this up and running. The issue is, he said that for some reason, which he did not know, Missouri American Water would not run the line to that facility, and they had no water, and this was holding them up. So that's the reason I'm here tonight. I did tell him that I was friends with the mayor, and I did call the mayor this afternoon and let him know And there was one other thing he said, and I'm not sure. I don't know the relevance of it. He said that, and I believe it pertains to the beer issue, that they will need a state license and a federal license. And he said there were issues, and he did not know why, with the Fed license. So if you could look into that, I'd appreciate it. You know, I'm originally from Jersey. We love our pizza. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other speakers?
The following two want to speak to the public hearing as well as latitude 38.
Okay, so this is the opportunity. If you wish to speak during public comment, and it's you can speak now, or if it's latitude 38, you can also speak at the public hearing for that. So I'm getting them mixed up. They're on the same street there. So Etherton, the public hearing is for Etherton Heights. So if your comments are related to Etherton Heights, you can certainly speak at that public hearing. That's what it's for. But anything else, public comment is a time now that you can come up and speak. So I'll leave that open to you, how you want to handle that. Yes. So then we'll call you up to come up here. Looks like you do have other topics besides.
Brian.
Looks like both of you have comments related to other items besides Etherton Heights. So this would be at the time now to come and speak as well regarding those items. And then again, you can come back at the public hearing for the Etherton Heights. I'll get that right now.
Lynn Link, Ward 6, 4028 Indian Ridge. Wildwood Gazette cited J-turn statistics that downplay their danger. Originally attributed to the Rockford Files stunt driver, Terry Gant, who used the maneuver to quickly change directions. The current theory behind J-turns is that on a lower traffic rural divided highway, the left turn is eliminated, causing reduction in a specific type of accident. But because drivers have to merge over several lanes of high-speed traffic in a short distance to attempt a U-turn, virtually all studies confirm that they're difficult to navigate, with drivers making numerous serious errors. The 2016 National Center for Freight and Infrastructure Study revealed, quote, driver confusion and higher rear end and fixed object crashes. Even MoDOT-sponsored survey of J-turn users found 71% said issues arose while using J-turns, 62% said they were not easy to navigate, 58% said they felt less safe than making a left turn, 24% they said they didn't feel safe while merging, and 17% said their vehicle was too large for the U-turn. MoDOT's new director, Ed Hassinger, says he has, quote, prioritized safety. Data shows J-turns are not safe. Wildwood will be the only municipality in the county with J-turns, the only anywhere with two-lane traffic being funneled into one lane, and where there will be three consecutive, and in such a short distance. There's been no safety data study done on J-turns with these three increased risk factors. If MoDOT ignored the synergistic increased risk when approving this project, they didn't, quote, prioritize safety. Latitude N38 project that Mr. Bosworth has been trying to develop since 2017, despite overwhelming public objection and prior commission and council denials. Why was it allowed to move forward? Why would anyone have voted for it when we didn't even know if a fire truck could maneuver these narrow streets? The developer proposed to limit street parking of the 55 units to only 15. Who and how will they be enforcing this? Public reviews say parking is already an issue at other less dense Benton rentals in St. Charles County. If garage setbacks are less than 15 feet, even in a smaller sedan, it will not be able to park on the driveways. The developer said that he had to build 55 houses on the property in order to make numbers work. Numbers aren't working not because 55 is a safe number of housing units to build on the lot. Numbers don't work because poor planning and the developer paid too much for this land. Low-income senior HUD housing was recently proposed before the Planning Committee. The proposed development with 144 units of low-income housing will be next to 132 new homes at the reserve. When it comes before the council, you'll need to consider whether it is wise to put this many housing units, exponentially increasing the traffic to hundreds of more cars across from Pond Elementary. Nowhere on any of the agenda attachments could I find the name of this developer. In recent planning committee meeting, the representative of the developer gave no information about who his client was. He stated that their plan was first to build 48 unit 3-story building, but they may have to wait for more funding to get the other portion of the development. Do they have enough money to complete the 3-story building? The city should demand that all HUD block grant information, including capital advance forms,
1 minute.
be given. HUD.gov website recently reported that $1.9 billion of HUD funds were, quote, misplaced. According to HUD Inspector General, our tax dollars can fall victim to fraud on block HUD grants. Low-income senior housing is essential for our aging population. However, it is best suited as part of a mixed-income senior housing development like Mason Point or Gambrel Gardens. Here, block grants can be given to trusted senior housing developers who can also provide a higher level of maintenance, amenities, and services for seniors that sparse standalone HUD developments cannot. Our seniors, no matter their income level, deserve a nice place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker.
Sandra Bryan.
Sandra Bryan, Ward 8. Good evening. I took a closer look at the building plans for Atherton Heights. The 3 houses are squeezed together onto a narrow lot facing.
Just a moment. Do you want to wait till the public hearing comes up for Atherton
Oh,
Heights?
I'm sorry. Okay, I can wait, but I do have something to say about TV.
Oh, that's fine. Go ahead then. Just wanted to make sure you,
Okay.
your comments.
Alrighty then, let me look for it here. City of Wildwood decisions and considerations lately make me extremely nervous. The TB project is a ridiculous proposal. It is hanging on by a thread only because of Crestview Road. We need to do better. Hang on, my nephew. We need to do better, council members. You are overlooking severe limitations in pursuit of a road getting built. I have heard many other residents that council members do not read the opposition emails. Remember, you work for us, and therefore it is up to you to listen to public pleas. If Atherton Heights or TB is allowed, it will cause irreparable damage to surrounding land and existing homeowners' properties. Mine too.
Thank you. All right, do we have any other speakers? Okay, this is the section for responses. Anyone have anything that they wish to respond? Otherwise, I do have a response because thank you, Mrs. Siebert, for calling me, making me aware of the Good News Brewery and the issues that they have with water. So I spoke with the owner and then contacted our resource over at Missouri American Water, and they're going to have water by the end of the week. So we'll get that going there. And we're and we're going to work on the other issue. I mean, it's the federal government, so obviously we'll see who we can escalate to there. All right, thank you. All right, well, that concludes public participation. We'll move to mayor's announcements and appointments. So I'm going to come down, but I'd like to ask our guests, the Lafayette High School varsity escadrille team, to come up here. And if the parents want to take pictures, you're welcome to come up and get a closer view. Feel free to do that. All right, we're going to have you come up here by Wildwood right here, and I'm going to read this proclamation. Right. So we got the photographers all ready to go. Paparazzi. Okay. We'll have you hold the proclamation so you can get some pictures too like that. Well, thank you so much for joining us here. This is a special night for us because we get to honor all of you and your team that's not able to make it tonight. But this is an incredible story here. So let me read this proclamation here. That whereas the Lafayette High School varsity escadrille team is comprised of several very talented young women whose dedication and teamwork led them to an outstanding season this year. And whereas the Lafayette High School escadrille team won their first Missouri State Dance Competition, it's a championship, I understand, they placed first in the Palm Division 5 category. And whereas the Lafayette High School escadrille team competed at the National Dance Team Championship in Orlando, Florida, competing amongst the best teams in the country, and they received a ranking of 14th in the nation in the small varsity Palm category. And so whereas the Lafayette escadrille team consists of Alessandra Mendonça, Jesse Kennington, Ellie Kelker, Lydia Work, Lily Miller, Abby Mohan, Kylie Raymond, Emily Warner, Milena Mendonça, Ella Blanchard, and Jillian Foster. And whereas head coach Kate Hunts and assistant coach Montana Krieger and all the individual players on the team succeeded in bringing a great deal of pride, excitement, and honor to Lafayette High School and the Rockwood School District. So therefore, I, Mayor of the City of Wildwood, on behalf of the city on this 10th day of March, hereby congratulate and commend the coaches and team members for their outstanding talents, dedication, and success in bringing home a state championship and a national ranking for this team. Please join me in congratulating. Need me in. I didn't get you in the picture. Want a picture of me? In there, yeah. Well, yeah, you signed the piece of paper. Well, you get in there. Come on, get closer together. Come on, guys. All right. Well, congratulations again. Thank you so much for coming to our meeting tonight, and keep up the great work. Thank you. Okay, appointments will be part of the consent agenda. So now we will move into the public hearing for tonight. So Colleen, you please read the public hearing item.
PZ 5-24, Etherton Heights, in care of Bree Sedota Properties, LLC, 629 Langton Drive, St. Louis, Missouri, 63105. A request for a change in zoning upon a tract of land which is currently zoned NU non-urban resident district, town center regulating plan categories of neighborhood edge and neighborhood general district to the R-1A 22,000 square foot residence district. Proposed use, a total of 3 single-family dwellings on individual lots.
Director Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, before you tonight is the letter of recommendation as acted upon by the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding this particular zoning matter. As Ms. Lobeck read into the record, the current zoning of the property is NU non-urban resident district. The property is 3 acres in size. The current owner of the property would like to rezone the property to the R1A 22,000 square foot resident district to authorize the development of it with 3 lots and 3 detached single-family homes, 1 each on the lots themselves. This particular item had been before the Development and Zoning Review Committee of the city on multiple occasions. Originally, it started out with a much greater density, and over the course of different developers and different proposals, the last submitted was for 9 homes on the property. The Department of Planning reviewed that particular request and recommended no more than 7, given the need to have the front of the homes face Etherton Road, which is the pattern associated with that particular city street. Much to the surprise of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the owners returned with a plan that you see tonight, the 3 homes. In conclusion, the department would note that the neighborhood edge designation under the Town Center Regulating Plan accommodates the 3 home sites. The design of the home sites generally comply with all of the requirements of the neighborhood design standards. And then finally, it is, for all intents and purposes, a significant less utilization of the property than originally intended by the Town Center Plan. All of those factors influence the Planning and Zoning Commission. So tonight, again, you have a favorable recommendation regarding the requested rezoning. After public comment, the department will return to the podium and be available for any comments or questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So at this time, we'll open up the public hearing. And again, we'll just ask again for comments to be kept to 5 minutes and be respectful in your comments. So Colleen, please go ahead and call our
Sandra-
first speaker.
Sandra Bryan.
Hello again, Ward 8, Sandra Ryan. I took a closer look at the building plans for Atherton Heights, and the 3 houses are squeezed together onto the narrow lot facing Atherton Road. The houses are extremely close to my property line and the neighbor on the other side. This will cause water runoff because of lack of permeable land. The proposed dry wells and pop-up emitters will not be effective in this situation. The property and Atherton Road are elevated higher than my property. I'm in a flood zone because of that. I have mentioned that last year I put in a swale drain tile in 2 areas of my yard. The 2 retaining walls also had to be replaced because of water damage. $16,000 later, my water issues were resolved. I can assure you this high-density project will affect my property. If you allow even 2 houses on this land, it will cause me problems. I suggest everyone move forward with extreme caution. This will not end well if allowed. Only 1 house should be built there and drain tile installed from the front and further to the back of the house. It's just not going to work, people. It's just not going to work. And if you know, I'm done. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Lynn Link.
Lynn Link, 4028 Indian Ridge, Ward 6. Certainly by reducing the amount of homes allowed, even the builder has recognized potential unique issues with this development on this parcel of land. This parcel of land is located in the historic Grover neighborhood where numerous homes are on the city's own historic inventory. These homes are an irreplaceable part of our shared history. As such, they don't deserve the same standard of protection against potential adverse effects of development. They deserve an even higher standard. Flooding and excessive water runoff from this permeable hayfield is already an issue for nearby residents. Obviously, placing 3 large homes with driveways on it will exacerbate that. Attempting water abatement is always required on larger developments, and addressing it with water retention detention areas. Has the developer submitted a water abatement plan? In an historic neighborhood, preservation of existing historic properties and even careful planning of new developments with focus on the aesthetics of blending new with old is essential. Ensuring this reveals the community's dedication to the preservation and its importance of its own history, and in turn can give a competitive edge when applying for grants. Having the architectural review board's input in both the style and placement of the homes on each lot perhaps can help to ensure that our city's historic properties are both valued and given priority. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other speakers? Okay, Director Vunich.
Mr. Mayor, with your permission, if questions could be deferred for a second, I'd like to respond to a couple of comments from the speakers. First and foremost, I can assure you that our Director of Public Works, Rick Brown, and the Department of Planning understand the problems associated with stormwater management in the city of Wildwood. As many on the city council are aware, including Mr. Farmer, who is the chair of the task force, we have spent the better part of 3 years studying this issue and working on solutions with the state of Missouri, the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District, and others. We will, as in any case, apply the appropriate regulations to ensure that impacts are minimal or none. I say minimal because, again, as we know, many of our storms of late are very different than storms that we've grown accustomed to in years past. These storms are high intensity and low frequency, but they deposit inches and inches of water in a short period of time. No system, regardless if it's maintained by the city of Wildwood, the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District, or individual homeowners, can address some of the storms we've had recently. We do our best to plan ahead, to recognize those situations that need to be recognized, and do our best with best management practices and to ensure compliance and safety for all and eliminate property damage. In this particular instance, I would just note the smallest lot that's being proposed is 39,000 plus square feet. The others are 1 acre in size, and obviously still have a large area of pervious surface, the grass, the turf, to address infiltration and even a limited amount of stormwater runoff. Additionally, since this project is in town center, addressing Ms. Link's concerns, any project in town center, whether it's a single family dwelling or a large commercial building, does go to our architectural review board. And one of the standards that's applied by the architectural review board is to recognize the built environment and take cues from that built environment in any new dwelling. So hopefully from that perspective, we'll be able to address the historic community around Grover. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other speakers? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, any questions from our council members?
Do we have any questions? Councilmember Rambo.
Yeah, just real quickly. Joe, it looks as though these lots are among the larger lots, would be among the larger lots there in that area. Is that accurate?
That's correct. There are larger lots nearby in nigher acres.
Mm-hmm.
Those are 3 acres, generally speaking. But in this vicinity, we have a range of lot sizes that are as small as, I believe, about 7,500 square feet to 10,000 square feet, et cetera.
And in general, my recollection is that this land generally slopes away from Old Manchester down toward Crestview. Does it make a swale there somewhere in the middle, or what's the topology level?
The low spot on this particular site is the southeast corner, so that's where ultimately drainage will be directed.
By Etherton?
Pardon?
Next to Etherton?
Actually, it's in the direction of 3 foot.
Oh, E. I'm sorry. Duh. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
And so the intent would be to any captured stormwater to be drained into the nearby creek that defines the rear lot areas of like Three French Hens, Bowen Sinclair, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, I'll see if there's a motion to close the public hearing made by Councilmember Farmer. Is there a second? Made by Councilmember Ottenberg. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? All right, and this bill is on the regular agenda later on this evening. So we'll move on into then unfinished business. So we have three bills that are up for a second reading. So we'll start with Bill 2961, which is by the Planning and Parks Committee. Going to get a motion for the second reading of the bill. Made by Councilmember Farmer, and the second made by Councilmember McCutcheon. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain? Okay, Bill 2961 is before the council, so do you go ahead and read it.
Bill 2961, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Natalie McAvoy for the management and oversight of the city-sponsored farmers market. Second reading.
Right, Joe, do you have anything to add?
Mr. Mayor, I do not, but members of City Council, if there are any questions regarding the bill in this forum, the department would be glad to answer them.
Okay, any questions?
Thank you.
All right, we'll see none. Then Colleen, please call the roll for final passage.
Councilmember Brost, Councilmember Edens,
Yes.
Can you, Councilmember Edens, can you go ahead and unmute and try again?
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall.
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper, Councilmember Galani,
Yeah.
Councilmember Preston,
Yes.
Councilmember Mabry,
Yes.
Councilmember Nian.
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer.
Yes.
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 Okay, bill passes. We'll move on to Bill 2962 for the council for a second reading. Can I get a motion for the second reading of Bill 2962? Made by Councilmember Farmer. There's second by Councilmember Nian. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? Right, Colleen, can you go ahead and read Bill 2962?
Bill 2962, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a city contractor agreement on behalf of the city of Wildwood with M&H Concrete Contractors Incorporated for the fiscal year 2025 concrete street and sidewalk replacement project, including other incidental items as shown on the project bid document.
Hey, Rick, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mayor. I will just quickly mention that this is for our annual street sidewalk replacement project. The contractor has notified us that he would like to start work as early as mid-April, maybe May 1st, and we have work planned in 8 different subdivisions for this year. And we will be getting out postcards to those residents in advance of work, and we can certainly share the specific locations in more detail with the council at a later time. And with that, I'll address any questions.
Bill's on the floor for discussion. Is there any discussion, question, or comment from the council? Seeing none, Colleen, please call the roll for final passage.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Galani,
Yeah.
Councilmember Preston,
Yes.
Councilmember Mabry,
Yes.
Councilmember Nian,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yes.
Councilmember Edens.
Yes.
Okay, the bill passes. Councilmember Edens, I just want to make sure we got an affirmative, or if you, okay,
Yes.
so you're nodding your head there, and thank you for that. All right, so moving on, Bill 2963 is before the council for second reading, concerns all wards. Can I get a motion for the second reading of Bill 2963? Made by Councilmember Preston and seconded by Councilmember Dodwell. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? All right, Ms. Lovick, please go ahead and read Bill 2963.
Bill 2963, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a city contractor agreement on behalf of the city of Wildwood, with Go Green Lawn and Landscape for the 2025 roadside finish mowing program for the city of Wildwood.
Thank you. Rick, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mayor Gaetano. I did want to briefly mention, I know Mr. Councilmember Mabry had a concern, I think, relative to the contract last meeting, and I wanted to point out that we did attach some of the general conditions to the agreement, which is attached to the ordinance. So I think there might have been some confusion about that maybe in the past. I don't know if there's still a question there, Councilmember, but if there are any questions, I'd be glad to entertain them at this time.
Councilmember Mabry.
I think you're just thinking, Rick.
Oh, you were thanking Rick. Okay, just remember to turn that microphone on when you speak. All right, anyone else? All right, Colleen, please call roll for passage.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Delaney,
Yeah.
Councilmember Preston,
Yes.
Councilmember Mabry,
Yes.
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 Okay, the bill passes. Move on to the next part of the agenda, which is new business here. So I'll look to see if we can, for the sake of efficiency, read several of these items in mass. So if there's no objection to, let's see if we have. Okay, thank you. So, okay, so if there's no objection, we'll look to read in mass bills 2964, 2965, and 2968. And then we do have a request that we'll entertain regarding a second reading and other discussion with some of the other items. So 2964, 2965, 2966, and 2968. Does anyone have any objection if we read these en masse? Okay, seeing none, then I get a motion for the first reading of these bills, 2964, 2965, 2966, and 2968, made by Councilmember Ottenberg, second by Councilmember Preston. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? All right, Colleen, can you go ahead and read these bills?
Bill 2964, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a city contractor agreement on behalf of the city with Pace Construction Incorporated for the resurfacing of various public streets within the city, including traffic control and other incidental items as shown on the project bid document. Bill 2965, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a city contractor agreement on behalf of the city of Wildwood with RV Wagner Incorporated for repairs to Centaur Road Bridge 3-112 within the city of Wildwood. Bill 2966, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, an ordinance of the city council authorizing the mayor of Wildwood to complete negotiations and execute an agreement for the engagement of the professional consulting firm MIG Incorporated, Moore, IF Bocano, and Goldman for the development of this community's first historic preservation plan, which was recommended by the Historic Preservation Commission in its letter to City Council dated January 23rd, 2025. Bill 2968, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, approving the adjustment of certain lots that are situated on our northwest corner of Pond Road and Smith School Road, with such being a tract of land that is part of U.S. Survey 385, Township 45 North, Range 3 East, St. Louis County, Missouri, and hereafter having the two lots known as Dunn Boundary Adjustment Plat of 1318 and 1336 Pond Road, number 2.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask to see if, Rick, if you want to come up first and if there's anything at all that you wish to add related to these bills.
Mayor Gaetano, I don't have anything additional to add relative to 2964 or 2965, but I'm available for any questions from the council.
Okay, so anyone have any questions for Rick? Okay, thank you, Rick. Seeing none, then I'll ask Director Vunich, come up if there's anything else that you wish to add and entertain any questions.
And I apologize, Mr. Mayor, I had to step out to not cough in public, but the first readings were done in mass for 2966, 2967, and 2960.
Just of the bills that you mentioned, 2966 and 2968, we're treating the others separately.
Thank you. With regards to 2966, the department would just mention that this is a ordinance that is being recommended by the Historic Preservation Commission to complete the city's first historic preservation plan, very similar to a master plan, but for historic preservation purposes. I would note that through the efforts of Robin Keefe and others on the Historic Preservation Commission, the city received a $21,000 grant from the State Historic Preservation Office, one of the largest we've ever received here in the city. The second item relates to a Dunn Boundary Adjustment Plat, which is, for all intents and purposes, adjusting two large lots into one that will be 20 acres and the other to be 6. And again, Mr. Newberry has kindly shown the description. And as you can see, the particular parent tract of land is located at the intersection of Smith School Road and Pond Road. If there are any questions regarding those two, the department would be glad to answer them.
Okay, anyone have any questions? Councilmember Farr.
Yeah, Joe, I was just going to suggest when it comes to the historic preservation plan, like we've learned with the watershed plan and some of the other things, let's just make sure when we're getting this done that we have all those weird little things that all of these different grant providing bodies like to have in these plans, so we can make sure that we can maximize that as much as possible, since obviously we're fairly dependent on getting those things.
Well, the good news is before we even launched the request for qualifications, we, for the most part, had the grant in hand. And just this past week, Robin Keefe prepared a letter to the State Historic Preservation Office at the direction of the Historic Preservation Commission requesting further funding, which we think is possible.
Great, thanks.
All right. Don't see no other questions then. These bills will be back up for second reading at the next meeting. All right, so now we're going to proceed forward with the bills that we did not read so far. So the next one is Bill 2967. So can I get a motion for first reading of Bill 2967? Made by Councilmember Dodwell. Is there a second? Made by Councilmember Mabry. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone oppose?
Opposed.
We have one opposed. Anyone abstain? All right. Ms. Olbeck, please go ahead and read Bill 2967.
Bill 2967, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the rezoning of a 7-acre tract of land that is located at the southeast corner of Etherton Road and Crestview Drive from the NU non-urban residence district to the R-6A 4,000 square foot residence district with a planned residential development overlay district, PRD, to authorize up to 55 single-family attached and detached dwellings from this neighborhood's central district town center location, which includes an acceptance of the petitioner's appeal of the Planning and Zoning Commission's denial action on the same.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, as you are aware, for the past several months, this particular item has been discussed at work session at length. At the last work session in February, the City Council concurred with the preparation of legislation for the 55 lot development that is shown on your monitors and behind the dais. I would note that in preparing the bill for consideration tonight, the director of the department miscounted on a couple of occasions. So as mentioned during public participation, the lot count won't increase, but the type of building clusters will need to be changed, as well as one specification for the internal streets. So my apologies. Last week was not a great week for details for me, given my cold or whatever it is. So from that perspective, I do expect to have an amended bill before you for final passage at the April meeting. I would note, just as an important item, under our regulations in the zoning ordinance, the rezoning can be approved by a simple majority, but the overlay district will require a supermajority of 11 of the 16 members. If there's any questions, items along this line, I'd be glad to try to answer them at this time.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Hope you get better soon, Joe.
Thank you.
I do have a few questions after reading the ordinance. How is this project being funded?
I do not know. Typical projects are funded through private financial institutions. I know that there's been discussion about FHA. FHA underwrites many multiple family projects within the region, not Section 8 only. And the intent of FHA is to get a guaranteed loan at a lower rate. And the federal government seems to favor multiple family projects in this regard.
So will any Section 8 be required?
There is no reference in the draft bill relative to low to moderate income housing. Certainly, given the costs associated with the project, we believe it'll be market rate, but certainly we can ask the petitioner if you'd like to share any information about the financing component and the intent with the FHA loan.
Okay, I have a couple other questions. We haven't seen, or I haven't seen, any architectural drawings. And I know when this developer came forth before and wanted only 7 houses on this land, that the architecture did not follow Wildwood's guidelines and kind of just really stuck out amongst the other homes. Is that going to be the case?
It should not. Early on in the process, and I apologize if it's not part of the packet, it was not an intended omission. There are some renderings that are available, and so the department, Travis or I, will send them out to all of you tomorrow, and we'll post the renderings as part of this packet. So if anybody that is here tonight wants to see them, they can just go to the packet or the agenda on the website and find them.
And will the fence be all that's necessary for the mitigation of stormwater for their neighbor?
The fence, more so than anything, is a reflection of Mr. Cummer's concerns about just the privacy and having neighbors where now there's only one. And the department felt confident that we would be able, through our existing regulations, to achieve that. But at the end of the day, I think a clear, concise direction to the developers that this fence needs to go from the westernmost part of the site, Etherton Road, to the easternmost portion. And it just can't be a white vinyl fence.
So would it be more productive if there was like plantings of evergreens? Would that help mitigate some of the runoff?
Well, certainly any plantings can assist, because when rain falls, trees and shrubs and evergreens, they basically, the rain hits them first, slows down its velocity, and then its erosive impact on the soil. There still is a robust landscape plan, but we're just substituting where we can this fence to guarantee the privacy of the neighbor.
And I know in our discussion recently about Villages of Brightleaf, we asked that they put windows in with more insulation for sound mitigation. And we also asked that the, it's not siding, what's it, insulation, be one of those also for sound mitigation. Is that going to be the case in this project?
We did not identify that here, given it's relatively speaking about 3rd or 4th tier project off of Route 100, the south side. Obviously, Canberra, we've experienced problems. We've heard from a number of property owners in there regarding noise. I certainly will talk with the developers, or at least advise them of our concern and let them make that decision, and then I can let you know.
Especially with Main Street going through. That's going to create more traffic noise. So,
Right.
yeah, I would be concerned about that. And then when I was reading through the ordinance, I was a little confused because I thought I heard at the very end of the discussion 2 weeks ago, that the developer was going to pay for Main Street.
Correct.
But as I read the ordinance, it doesn't seem that that's the case. So are they paying for a portion of it? Or are they paying for whole Main Street?
The way the condition is written, they are responsible for the dedication of a 40-foot land strip along the entire north frontage of the property and to construct, for all intents and purposes, a 24-foot pavement that will act as Main Street. In addition, the streetscape requirements, the vertical curb, the sidewalk, the street trees, street signs, street lights, those will all be installed as well. So you'll have a portion of the streetscape in place as planned, and then the road that'll ultimately provide at least a potential connection between City Hall and Otherton Road. But no, they are the only accommodation the city is making, and we have done this in the past, this has been discussed. We are crediting the TGA, the traffic generation assessment fee, to the developer, and we're requiring the developer to just provide proof that amount is actually used for Main Street.
And forgive me, but so the developer is going to pay for the entirety of Main Street, or is there going to be a portion that's going to be left private and the city's going to have to construct?
The city will have to construct its own portion along Village Green property. This is not the entire length of that missing section.
So there will no longer be a gate or a fence down the middle of the street?
No, Bowles Engineering, the engineer of record, came up with a great solution, one that certainly the director of the Department of Planning didn't think of. But the way it's been designed is there will be no need for gate because there'll be a transition point between existing Crestview and the new street that'll accommodate, for all intents and purposes, a 90-degree intersection and a safe ingress and egress out of Crestview Drive onto the new street.
And you think the developer's interpretation of the width of the street that he will construct will be a good structure to go with? I mean, are the pavements going to be equal? Is there going to be a runoff issue? Are there going to be sewers there? What?
So the curb that I mentioned that's part of the streetscape will be constructed with curb inlets. So they'll capture the water from the street, the new street, and any of that to the north that doesn't flow in the opposite direction and send it into the curb line, the curb inlets, and then into the detention basins for a meter discharge. So from that perspective, they have addressed that, which is a key element for the support, I think, of the Department of Public Works and the Department of Planning.
So will the private section of the road and the public section of the road, will they be adjacent? Is there going to be a higher level than the other one? What's?
So the best I can describe it is the new street will be here. There'll be a little 5-foot strip of grass for the most part of equal elevation, and then Crestview Drive. They won't be flush, as I recall, as we get further to the east. Could be wrong on that. I don't have the plan sheet in front of me. But the intent is not to use Jersey barriers, as was mentioned at one time. It is to try to make it a smooth transition, and for all intents and purposes, not necessarily create an obstruction that the residents on the north side of Crestview Drive have to look at.
And so the private side of Crestview Drive, what is it going to cost the city to construct that portion? And what are we looking at? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? And if we contacted the residents on that side of the street?
Mr. Lee has been working on that particular issue. What I will tell you is The Department of Public Works prepared a cost estimate when we were dealing with the McBride Homes project on the north side of Crestview Drive, and this particular project in Village Green on the south side. In total, I believe it was a $4 million project. $2 million of that was the undergrounding of the electric lines on the north side of Crestview Drive. Obviously, we're going to look at a different solution. It's never pretty to have overhead lines, but when you have an undergrounding that's 2 million and a project that's 2 million, you've got to give somewhere.
And do you think that would be acceptable from the utility company?
Certainly they prefer overhead. At least that's what they usually tell the departments, and that it's easier for maintenance purposes. Reliability wise, undergrounding is the best bet.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
I see Councilmember Edens. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I think the elimination of the other two turnarounds at the fire lane is commendable. I love the progress that we've made on that. If you could put the, sorry, Matt back up. I just had a question. If it's possible with the final remaining one, is there enough room in the roadway to make that a small turnaround? I ask because I'm from an area in the city where, T-platting can be good in the long run if there is build out, because it's expecting that level of change, but when it doesn't happen, it does create awkward design. So I'm not sure if there's just some sort of, central concrete island that can be placed with a tree and then just kind of make it a turnaround rather than a dead end T, if there's enough room for that.
Certainly, when we started this project, we had 3 T turnarounds, one of full size, which is the one on the east end of the site by the detention basins, and then those other 2. The other 2 have been eliminated with the emergency access that now is provided, as shown in the darkened area. The other T turnaround is actually full size and was reviewed by the fire marshal and accepted. And so from that perspective, we can certainly ask as we move forward before the bill is passed, if it is passed.
Yes, I understand that it's possible to back the trucks up, the school buses, that it works from a physical aspect. I'm just thinking from an aesthetic, if it's possible to kind of tweak that design a little bit, I think it might be nicer for residents to look at.
Well, certainly there's a lot of things we can do with landscaping, berms, stone material to make it as attractive as possible. But I think if we tried to do even the smallest acceptable cul-de-sac size to the Department of Public Works, the lot numbers become in question again.
What do you mean by in question again? Because it takes up, it would go back and eat up into the lot space.
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
already there. Okay. So this is
Yes.
how we're getting the larger size setback then.
Yep, I think they would end up losing at least 2 lots. But that's just my assessment looking at it right here.
Okay. Yeah, maybe if we could find out more specifically in either way, that'd be good. But if not, I understand. Thank you.
I will ask the developer if they could just overlay the smallest acceptable cul-de-sac to the fire district in the city, and it should explain, I think, that the desired 55 lot count will drop.
Okay, any questions or any other comments from anyone on the council? Councilmember Mabry.
Thank you. Wanted to be able to remark to the residents that have attended. You've been dogged, you've been valiant in talking with us. And very recently, even after the last hearing, I took city administration and planning staff to task to address what I consider both what you've continued to consider the challenges or the drawbacks, and then those that have been answered satisfactorily by me, but then those that I'd also shared and had not been satisfactorily answered to the point where I was comfortable with approval. And it's in the area of parking and in property management that were the two that were still concerns to me. Water, stormwater mitigation, retention, management, abatement. That's been answered. It's been answered by math, capacities, volume, grades. That's answered. Aspects of other concerns have been answered, but traffic and property management, making this the first best and only best successful enterprise of its type. This will spell the success of Town Center for decades, or it will spell its doom if it's not managed properly and if it becomes a nuisance more than a benefit to the community, which is what our master plan dictates and what this complies. I've learned that when you're looking at this plan, only recently has this plan been updated. And I look at the visuals, I look at the mechanics. The fact that those two tiny T's, which represented to me an insult and a perpetual permanent 4-car parking spaces, those just weren't going to work. So without even me complaining about it, it's gone. Now you've got a loop. The fact that the streets, the internal streets, have been taken from private alleyways to public streets was crucial for my approval. You'll notice they're wider. What I didn't know is that internal parking by residents or anyone else is illegal. Didn't know that. So every resident, every unit will get 4 parking spaces, 2 in a garage, 2 in a driveway. That 20-foot requirement for the outside parking space is still not enough for a crew cab, full-size pickup truck, full bed, full 8-foot bed pickup. But we hope there's only 1 or 2 of those big boys in there. The 20-foot will remain if, my understanding is if the developer persists in saying, oh, a couple few will be 18 feet, so we can still squeeze in this many units. Make the dining room narrower. The other side of the wall of the garage moves over 2 feet, 2 foot less dining room. You move the garage over 2 feet, you get your 20-foot back. This is just mechanics to mention. The last aspect is making these streets public streets means they're now going to be enforced by our law enforcement with ticketable offenses for every single solitary infraction. That includes the 7 dudes coming over on Saturday for a beer party and they got 4 spaces and they need 12. And the fact that we have our own police protection with very close proximity to this crucial first ever project of its type will add credits or add strength to passing this ordinance. Property management. I've heard references made to the petitioner's project management plan, the sophistication of it, and how they've documented how they'll address, encounter, and satisfy, make solutions for, not just excuses, for proper control, traffic control, people control, occupancy control, quality of maintaining the units control. And I don't have to demand to read those. All I need to know is that the Department of Planning and City Administration has. And by their telling me that this developer, despite disparaging remarks and what people take photographs of, this developer has covered the bases in writing. I was going to stand on demanding and just voting simple no if they did not have a full-time on-site perpetual manager. I don't need that anymore because we've got documented property management plan that our staff and our administration says in writing they cover the bases. And the fact that we have our own police protection, it's going to be enforcement. So the nickel's on enforcement, not on the fact that this is a bad plan, because this is not a bad plan. It can be very poorly managed, but it's not going to be poorly executed. Code enforcement's going to, I've seen code enforcement for Wildwood for all the time it's been incorporated. So I just wanted to provide one council member's perspective and approach. Sure appreciate everyone's patience in giving me the floor. I'm done.
Okay. Any other comments from anyone? All right, seeing none, then this item will be back for second reading at the next meeting. And as Director Vunich noted earlier, it does require a supermajority, which is 11 votes, for it to pass in the second reading. So thank you for that. Anything else from anyone regarding that? Otherwise, we'll move on. Okay, so we're going to go to Bill 2969. Can I get a motion for the reading of Bill 2969 made by Councilmember Farmer? Is there a second? Made by Councilmember Rambo. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? All right, Ms. Lobeck, please read Bill 2969.
Bill 2969, an ordinance authorizing the approval of a record plat for a 3-lot minor subdivision of property with each parcel of ground exceeding 13 acres in size and generally being located on the west side of Manchester Road, north of its intersection with Melrose Road, be known as Zizer Farms re-subdivision.
Okay, Director Vunich, do you have anything you wish to add?
Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, with the assistance of Mr. Newberry, you can see the proposed reconfiguration of the 4 total lots that form the tract of land. Out of this reconfiguration, the smallest lot will be 13 acres and the largest will be almost 71 acres in size. Ms. Weiss spoke during public participation and respectfully requested a second reading, and the department has no objection. If there are any questions or comments, I'd be glad to try to answer this time. Thank you.
All right, do we have any questions or comments related to this? Councilmember Rambo.
Yeah, real quickly. That driveway getting back to new lot 2 past new lot 3, is that a shared driveway or is that a flag lot, or what's the plan there? Or do we even know? And I'm asking because we don't normally like flag lots, but sometimes they serve a purpose, and I don't have any heartburn. I just want to know.
The new lot 2 is a flag lot. The tip of the pole, so to speak, is the minimum 40 feet in width. So any residential drive will easily fit within that and still leave ample space on either side. Flag lots are kind of a love-hate relationship. Sometimes they create unique lots that provide a great deal of privacy because no one can see the house from the road. On the other hand, people sometimes forget, oh, there's a portion of that lot right there. I didn't know I fenced it. So that kind of stuff.
Well, you can solve those problems. Anyway, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you for that. So we do have the first reading, but we have a request for a second reading of the bill. So is there anyone that wishes to make a motion for the second reading of the bill made by Councilmember Rambo, seconded by Councilmember Jaxi? All those in favor of the second reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? Ms. Lovick, please go ahead and read the bill for the second reading.
Bill 2969, an ordinance authorizing the approval of a record plat for a 3-lot minor subdivision of property with each parcel of ground exceeding 13 acres in size and generally being located on the west side of Manchester Road, north of its intersection with Melrose Road, be known as Zizer Farms re-subdivision.
All right, Director Vunich, do you have anything else?
I will not beat the proverbial dead horse on this one. So if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Okay, any questions?
Thank you.
All right, seeing none, for second reading, please go ahead and call the roll for final passage.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Galani,
Yeah.
Councilmember Preston,
Yes.
Councilmember Mabry,
Yes.
Councilmember Nyan,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Cutchin,
Yes.
Yes.
Councilmember Edens,
Yes.
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 Okay, that passes. So we will then move forward to the next part of the agenda. So we're going to see if there's no objection, see if we can just read these two together in mass because they are related, Bill 2970 and 2971. So are there any objections to doing that? Right, seeing none, then can I get a motion for the first reading of bills 2970 and 2971? Made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Nyan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain? All right, Ms. Lobeck, please go ahead and read bills 2970 and 2970.
Bill 2970, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to submit an interim payment to the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the city's share of the total cost of preliminary engineering, construction, and construction engineering for the turn lane improvements on State Route 100 at Manchester Road, Unas Lane, Woodland Meadows Drive, Lincoln Road, and Hawkins Rest Road, Windy Hollow Lane in the city as previously authorized by ordinance number 2824 and ordinance number 2700. Bill 2971, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to submit an interim payment to the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the city's share of the total cost of preliminary engineering, construction, and construction engineering for the J-turn improvements on State Route 100, at State Route T, and at Pond Road in the city as previously authorized by ordinance number 2699 and ordinance 2825.
Okay, Director Brown, do you wish to come up to introduce these items? And I understand the city administrator will also speak to these as well.
Thank you, Mayor Garitano, council members. These last two bills were quickly added on Friday on the basis of discussions we had with MoDOT relative to our Route 100 J turn and Route 100 left turn projects. This item was discussed on Wednesday at the Public Works Administration Committee meeting. And we, at that time, discussed the situation at hand, which was essentially, as you know, we have cost share agreements in place for both those two projects with MoDOT. MoDOT opened bids on February 21st, I believe it was, for both of those projects. And the actual bids for construction came in above the original estimated costs that are used in our cost share agreements. Those cost estimates were created at the planning stages in about 2021. So what we found out on Friday was that the commission made award of the two projects conditioned on the city making a payment to the commission to cover that increased cost. We knew that that was a potential Wednesday night, but we didn't realize that the award was conditioned upon it, and also that the payment needed to be made quickly, because essentially they had the clock was ticking relative to award, and they couldn't wait until the April meeting when we hope to address this. So this is in front of you tonight, earlier than we anticipated. I want to point out that the cost share agreements that we have in place essentially make us liable for the increased cost. So we are going to pay the bill ultimately, one way or the other. It's a question of whether we pay it tonight and move forward with the project or not. So the two bills are in front of you tonight to authorize two payments to MoDOT totaling about $630,000 to cover the increased cost of construction based on the actual bids. If we do not make, or we do not approve these two bills tonight, essentially MoDOT has said that they will not award the project and effectively rebid it at a later date. And we expect that that would only increase construction costs if we don't move forward now. If those costs go up even further, we will still be on the hook for those costs. So the thought is, this is the best solution, quite frankly. We know we're going to pay more. We're on the hook for it with the cost share agreement. But the alternative of not making the payments would put us in a position that MoDOT would delay the project, rebid it, likely at a higher cost, and that cost would get passed along to the city at that time. So with that, I'll close my comments, I suppose, and turn it over to the city administrator or the mayor, who've also been involved in this discussion quite a great deal on Friday.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to also point out tonight that on your, at your stationery was an email response from MoDOT, just in reference to 2970 and 2971. As discussed at the Administration Public Works Committee meeting earlier this week, the idea was that the amount came in high, and since they were not willing to cover the that amount until the end of the project, to then have the final accounting of the what would actually be owed by the city, then we would have to open up another supplemental agreement. At that point, that was the direction we were planning on taking, from a direction from the committee. And from there, we got a quick call on Friday stating that the project is pretty much going to be, they're going to reject all bids and then have to repost it at a later date. So tonight, we're kind of at a junction where we have to either authorize these expenditures for this project or be ready to have the resurfacing of 100 and the J-turns and the left turn lanes postponed.
Yeah, I'll just add on, as you're aware, this is all one big project, and the J-turns, left turns, but also the resurfacing. And as you're aware, we have this pavement out here for all the folks that drive on 100, pretty much west of City Hall. Right here, that road is the original pavement. I think that goes back to, is it the 70s? And one of the major issues that's very evident are the shoulders. You know, they're failing, using the words that MoDOT has said. And you can see chunks of asphalt, which it's dangerous, you know, for vehicles traveling, or even cyclists who are using the shoulders there. So I did speak with the district engineer regarding this concern that came up. They're very appreciative of Wildwood, the partnership we have had over the years with the projects that we have completed. They recognize that we are a strong partner for them, and we do this for our residents. The concerning aspect of it is that, you know, if they have to go to rebid, we all know, and we've seen this with the way inflation is, costs go up even for the city. And then even now, with a very strong emphasis on efficiency, we're seeing it at federal and even at the state. I anticipate that they'll be scrutinizing more of the dollars. So there's an opportunity before us to make a decision here to preserve the project, to move forward. A lot of work has been put in. We've had town hall meetings with the residents. We've incorporated that feedback. It's been written about in the paper. It's a project that, you know, obviously St. Louis County Police, they put their crash report, and those intersections do come up. So keep that in mind as we consider that, you know, to see how we can do that, because our residents have been asking for some time to get this done for our city. All right, I'll open it up. We've got a couple of folks, Councilmember Ottenberg and Councilmember Godwell. Go ahead.
For lack of a better way to phrase this, I wonder if the city administrator could comment on the impact on city finances of the passage of these two bills.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councilman Rottenberg. So that was something we have been discussing, and yes, it would add expenditure that was not anticipated in 2025, because the amount that was anticipated for both these projects were based on the engineer's estimates, so that was not anticipating those coming in extremely high. The other thing is the agreement that's currently listed, and currently the supplemental that is currently done for both of these projects did not call for this payment, even if it were to be done at this time. So in this case, if it did come in high, it would be something where it would have been able to be budgeted at a later date, but we were anticipating it coming in at the $1,181,000 for the left turn lanes, and then we have federal funding dropping in for the J turns, so it was only $252,000 for external expenditure. So that's what's been paid to MoDOT for these projects thus far. Plus, the city has covered the contractual components of the engineering and design component. So we've already put in quite a bit of this project. That being said, this payment would have, per the agreement that's currently on the books for both of these projects, it would have been due. Potentially, it may not have been this high because the actual cost, there's some difference of opinion on how that could be calculated. But as of right now, just based off the actual bid estimate that we had our engineers that came up with that number, and then the estimate that the actual amount that came in, it is higher. So in this case, it would increase expenditures in the capital improvement fund, and we would need to make some adjustments, which the department has some ideas for that as well.
All right, thank you very much.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Piggybacking on that and hopefully opening your ability to segue into your next statements. What are we going to be able to cut from this year's budget in order to compensate for this expenditure?
Yes. So thank you, Ms. Dodwell. Two things. One is not necessarily cutting it, but moving it. We have the Green Pines Park Connector Trail. That project is most likely going to actually go out the door in 2026. So that doesn't necessarily solve our problem, but that does move it into 26. The other one, the Anniversary Park, that's 500,000. But that would be pushed into 26. Oh, yes, yes. It's the connector trail. Yeah. Yes, that would be correct.
Would you also, as part of your motion for the city administrator, would that project be part of 2026 then? Or the Green Pines Connector Trail as a city administrator said? Okay, just checking on that. All right, you made a motion. Is there a second on that motion? And Colleen, let me know if you need that repeated. Okay, is there a second? Councilmember Ottenberg, I see a second there. So we have the motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? Councilmember McCutcheon.
Joe, don't we have a grant for a portion of the trail?
Do you, who wants to take that? Rick, you want to?
Yes, we do have a grant. And actually the part of the thought was that based on where we're at with that project, we likely are not going to be constructing it in 2025. It's in the capital improvements program for 2025, but the construction of it likely is next year. So we could easily move that project to 26, not eliminate it, but just move it. And that would free up funds in this year that would help address this overage.
And how would that impact our grant?
The intent would be that it would not negatively impact the grant. We would retain the grant. We wouldn't expend the funds until 2026.
Well, we would not lose the grant.
Right.
And so just out of curiosity, Councilmember Dodwell, what park do you have that doesn't have a restroom?
Anniversary Park was built 20 years ago, and there was no functional restroom in it for the first 15 to 20 years that it was there.
Well,
we just did that a couple of years ago. I'm not going to get into an argument with you. I'm just saying that there's times that we have to make a decision on what's best for the residents as a whole. And I'm making this motion because I feel this is a benefit to the residents as a whole, because so many of us go up and down 100 and we need to complete this improvement before it gets even more expensive.
Well, just for public interest, Anniversary Park has been upgraded. It was my suggestion to put additional swings in Anniversary Park, and the restroom has been updated. And there are a lot of wards who've been waiting for projects done for 25 years.
Councilmember Galani.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up, for the purposes of speeding this process along, if we go with Councilmember Dodwell's motion to move this to 2026, Director Brown has told us that it will not impact the grant or anything, and we can always discuss the budget for 2026 at a later time. We don't need to litigate that tonight, but it would free up the money for us to do what we need to do tonight.
Yeah, I think we can certainly revisit that when those decisions need to be made, because we do have some grant money for the connector trail, so we'll evaluate that. Councilmember Marshall.
Yeah, so that's one. What else do we move?
Yes, thank you,
That's only a
Mr.
portion of the money.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Marshall. So in this case, we do not currently have the bid package ready for the resurfacing of trails. They need to be done. That said, we could probably get back by with just some general maintenance work. So that was something that's 125,000 that's currently budgeted this year. And then, speaking of parks, Anniversary Park has resurfacing work scheduled as well this year for the actual parking lot, which is 35,000. That would be postponed to 2026. That would free up the funding necessary to get this done for this year.
Do we just have a total? Do you have what the total amount would be? I mean, we might as well do one amended motion and get it on, because I would imagine you want a second reading to be able to get the check cut.
Yes, so tonight, yes. So were you saying a motion for the total amount that MoDOT's requesting?
I think Councilmember Marshall can make an amendment to the motion on the floor.
Oh, gotcha.
With the additional item regarding the resurfacing at Anniversary Park. So is that your intention?
Yes, we'll just need a dollar amount.
Yeah, would that suffice then for?
Yes, so that is at 500,000 for Green Pines, moved to 26, 125 for resurfacing and repairs for trails, and then 35,000 for the resurfacing of the parking lot of Anniversary Park. Yeah, so that's over. It's over, but it can't do half.
Okay, all right, so you're making an amendment so that we can
Yeah,
incorporate it.
I'd like to amend the motion that through these projects, the city administrator comes up with the dollar amount needed to allow us to get the 2 checks to MoDOT so we can start that project.
And so with that said, I would say that you can't do half a parking lot, so that would have to be included. I think that there's about 30,000 that would be left over if you add all these 3 items together. Whatever is left over in that case over the 630, it's about that 30,000 mark, could be put towards making those repairs on the trails just to hold them by.
I mean, we still may be over when you get your estimates in as well. So I don't know that we need to come up with a way to spend. I just think we need to pull that money and get the MoDOT project started.
Yep.
So I make that motion.
Okay, is there a second to Councilmember Dodd? Second to the amendment there. So any other questions or discussion on the amendment part of it? Councilmember Farmer.
Yeah, I'm fine with the amendment, I guess, but we talked about this at our admin meeting earlier, I guess it was last week. I think that as a city, we just have to look at how we do this as a process. I appreciate Mayor Garetano, you talking with the folks at MoDOT and them being super happy that we're good partners, which is great because we pay an awful lot of money to fix their roads. And now we keep getting bids back that are not incrementally higher than what we were expecting. They are outrageously higher. So, from a city, in order to make any kind of budgets happening, we need to either figure out a better way to protect ourselves from MoDOT showing up and asking for $600,000 in 3 days, which is ostensibly what they did. That's not a good partner. It's not a good partner to leave roads unfixed since the 70s. That's insane. I was born in the 70s. I'm old. You can't have roads that long. I can barely walk. My knees hurt. Roads don't work that long. So I just think I don't know, we can address this, I guess, in committee, but we really do need to come up with a way to look at this, because project after project that we partner, whether it's with MoDOT or in other cases, we, the city of Wildwood, tend to get stuck holding the bag on a whole lot of extra money. And that takes services and things away from our citizens that are already paying the taxes to fix this stuff. So now we get to do it twice.
We're talking about, but I think it would be good for us to kind of take a step back from some of these projects where I appreciate that we do have partners that are willing to work with us, but let's focus on what we truly own as a city and invest that money in what we have full control of. And I think right now, after this project, we probably won't have to deal with MoDOT much. I think we've covered a lot of the roads. So we may be able to now focus more funds and solicit grants for Wildwood-owned projects. All right, anyone else? So we have an amendment on the floor. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain?
Abstain.
One abstention.
Yeah, the mic's cutting out, so I really couldn't hear the motion, and don't worry about repeating it, but just so you guys know, there's some audio on some issues for some of the home viewers.
Okay, thank you for letting us know. With that, though, the motion does pass. We're back to the main motion right now. Any other discussion on the main motion? Right, seeing none, then all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Opposed.
To oppose, the motion passes. Anyone abstain? Okay, so now we have the first reading complete. As the city administrator mentioned, we do have to provide response to MoDOT regarding, again, this because the approval is conditional by the leadership of MoDOT in Jefferson City. So is there a motion for the second reading of bills 2970 and 2971 made by Councilmember Marshall, seconded by Councilmember Farmer? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Opposed, and
Abstain.
Councilmember Edens opposed. So anyone abstain? All right, the motion passes. So Ms. Lovick, please go ahead and read for the second time bills 2970 and 2971.
City of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to submit an interim payment to the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission, the city's share of the total cost of preliminary engineering, construction engineering for the turn lane improvement on State Route 100 at Manchester Road, Booness Lane, Woodland Meadows Drive, Hankin Road, and Hawks Rest Road, Windy Hollow Lane in the city as previously authorized by ordinance number 2824 and ordinance number 2700. Bill 2971, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to submit an interim payment to the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the city's share of the total cost of preliminary engineering, construction engineering for the J-turn improvements on State Route 100, State Route 2, and at Pond Road in the city as previously authorized by ordinance number 2699, the ordinance number 2825.
Okay, so now we have a second reading. Any other discussion for second reading? All right, seeing none, then Ms. Lovick, please go ahead and call the roll for final passage of bills 2970 and 2971.
Councilmember Galani,
Yes.
Councilmember Preston,
Yes.
Councilmember Mabry,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
No.
Councilmember Reed.
Yes.
Did you say my name?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll abstain on this one.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Bills 2970 and 2970 pass. So we'll proceed to the next part of the agenda, which is first readings from hearings with favorable city recommendation. Can I get a motion for Bill 2972 for a first reading made by Councilmember Farmer and seconded by Councilmember Preston? All those in favor of reading Bill 2972 for the first time, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose? Any abstain? All right, motion passes. Go ahead, Ms. Lovick, please read Bill 2972.
Bill 2972, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Wildwood, Missouri, approving a change in zoning from the NU non-urban residence district to the R-1A 22,000 square foot residence district for a 3-acre tract of land, which is located on the east side of Etherton Road north of Manchester Road, thereby allowing for its division into 3 parcels of ground, such also being consistent with the neighborhood edge district designation of the town center plan. PZ 5-24 Etherton Heights revised in care of Sri Saduta Properties LLC.
Right, Director Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, at tonight's public hearing, this particular matter was discussed and presented and discussed. As you all are aware, it is a 3-lot subdivision on 3 acres that is part of Town Center. The smallest lot will be 39,000 square feet, with remaining 2 approximately 1 acre in size. If there are any questions regarding this particular matter, the department would be glad to try to answer them at this time.
All right, want to have any questions regarding the item that we saw earlier during the public hearing? All right, seeing none, then this will come back to the council for second reading at the next council meeting.
Mr. Mayor, with your permission, one of the bills, the department made an omission. It relates to the historic preservation plan. I failed to realize that the deadline for the submittal of the signed contract is March 15th, which I believe is Saturday. And so I should have requested a second reading at that time. I don't know how complicated this might be.
Okay.
Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, is this related to Bill 2972, Joe, or are you talking about?
2966.
Oh, 2966. Okay, we can come back to the, oh yeah, you're jumping ahead, but yeah, we're done with the first reading of Bill 2972. So Joe, thank you for that. So you're asking for a second reading of Bill 2966. Is there anyone that would entertain that request by the Director of Planning for second reading? Made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Marshall. All those in favor of a second reading of Bill 2966, please say aye.
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 Anyone oppose or abstain? All right, Ms. Lovick, please go ahead and read Bill 2966.
Bill 2966, an ordinance of the City Council authorizing the mayor to complete negotiations and execute an agreement for the engagement of the professional consulting firm MIG Incorporated, Moore, IF Bocano, and Goldsman for the development of this community's first historic preservation plan, which was recommended by the Historic Preservation Commission in its letter to City Council dated January 3rd, 2025.
For second reading, do you have any questions for Director Vunich? Okay, seeing none, then please call the roll for a final passage of Bill 29.
Yes.
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 I can't hear any names being called, so I'm just gonna say yes and hope I'm in the right spot. You are. Okay, perfect. I'm flying blind. It's something about your mic. It's just not coming through. So
Councilmember Ottenberg, Councilmember Davos, Councilmember Marshall.
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Delaney.
Yes.
Thank you for accommodating my mission.
Hey, Colleen,
Appreciate it.
quick with the mayor's permission, Colleen, can you bring the mic a little bit closer to your face?
Try talking into it.
Directly into it. We just want to see if it's
Close
working.
I've never been accused of
I
being
don't
quiet.
hear it really through my
No,
speaker. So, yeah,
it's not.
that's.
Colleen, would you mind speaking directly into it as close as you can?
This close?
that I can hear. I can hear part of it and then entire sentences just disappear. So I don't know if it's a connection glitch versus space, because it'll just disappear in the middle of a sentence.
Okay, thank you for letting us know about that. We will get that checked because one can hear. I could tell with the static, sounds like something may not be making a connection there. All right, so moving on, we have resolutions in the consent agenda, and we do have a consent agenda. Any objections to keeping all the items in the consent agenda? Otherwise, we will look for a look for a motion for approval of the consent agenda. Made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Ottenberg. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? All right, that passes. Then anything under miscellaneous. I do want to thank Councilmember Farmer for going to Jefferson City. There were several hearings and he went to go speak on behalf of the city. Do you want to share anything about that? Or what you spoke about?
Yeah, I went and spoke, I guess, against the food and diaper tax removal, not because I'm necessarily in favor of taxing food or diapers that much, but just kind of the general concept, like we talk a lot about here, like the plan isn't good. They're talking about getting rid of income taxes and these other taxes. And at one point, one of the members of the committee just said, I don't know how we're supposed to pay for anything if we do all of this. And the answer was like, yeah, we don't know either. And I was like, okay, well, here we go. So we did have a few, St. Louis County was there, several other municipalities were there, and I hope that our voices were heard. I will say Senator Gregory was on the committee, so he got to hear firsthand from us, which is great. And maybe he'll come take a visit and say hi to us some meeting and fill us in on how it's going.
Just, yeah, again, for awareness, previously filed where, initially hearing the idea is great. Of course, I don't think anyone would object to the idea that we should pay less in taxes. But when these taxes do fund the services for our residents, they put us in a very difficult situation. So the estimate, if that bill were to pass in Jeff City, is that Wildwood would lose about $760,000 a year in operating fund, which is about equivalent of paying 2 months for our contractual services for police. So that's just one example. So therefore, it's a big impact, and obviously, a lot of cities, a lot of representation from cities around us, our neighbors there. So we weren't the only ones, but there. So thank you, Joe, for going out there and doing that for us here. Anything else under miscellaneous? Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to point attention to one other thing. It just recently occurred, but down at the state legislature, we have our consultant, Mr. Silverman, that helps on our behalf. But something he brought to my attention, and we talked about it tonight, was House Bill 661. This bill would require municipalities pretty much and the Missouri Department of Transportation to reimburse and pay cable companies and internet providers if we were doing relocates. So if we were looking, let's just say the Main Street extension, we could go out, and if we're not burying the lines, it would not cost the city money. They would move them for us and it would not cost. But if we underground them, we have to pay for that. This would, in effect, not Ameren included, but it would make it so if there's cable being ran on that line, we would then have to pay just for them to move the line for any right-of-way maintenance. So just wanted to bring it up. It was in my report, the city administrator report last week, but we'll have some additional information as it kind of moves through, something to keep an eye on because it could drastically increase costs for right-of-way maintenance.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other hands up for miscellaneous, can we get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Made by Councilmember Farmer. Is there a second? Made by Councilmember Ottenberg. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned.